Good morning, community, and welcome. Can everyone hear me okay? Does the sound all right for you guys? I'm gonna wait before I have this really exciting announcement that's coming. Let me know if it works. Audio good, yay! I know you are very excited to hear about our first official class concept, the Viking warrior, or Drengr. And we're going to have a Q&A afterwards where we're going to have class questions about the Drengr only. So save your questions out because we don't want to make MooBot sad. Very sad. I will also be live texting the Q&A for our backers on the forum, so come and check that out. And if you miss any of the Q&A, you can look at it that way. If you are not a backer and you're interested in looking at that, you can go to our store.camelotunchained.com, take a look at the tiers, and PM me if you have any questions on any of the social sites, really. So I am ready to play this video for the Viking Warrior doc, but I'm not going to play it until you guys are sufficiently excited. And right now, I'm just not feeling like you're excited. So I don't know, just going to wait. Is anyone excited? Do you want to hear it? Do you want to hear our first official class concept? Let's see. Otherwise, I'll just keep it to myself because it's pretty cool, I gotta tell you. All right. Okay. Bladders aside. All right, let's have this now.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Well, first thing you'll notice that is different, color. So this is a holiday shirt. It's not my usual wear, but now that I'm getting thinner, and a lot thinner, I'm gonna start to change my wardrobe. So, all that aside, I hope you guys are excited about what we are gonna talk about today. And that is the warrior class for the Vikings. Currently, and it is only a placeholder name, called the Drengr. Even before we began our Kickstarter, one of the things we were talking about here in the office was how to do classes in a bit of a different way from most other MMOs, as well as some RPGs. And, we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about having it a very open-ended, pure skill based system. We talked about an action-based system. We talked about a lot of different systems. And over the last year, we continued to think about it. And what we are going to talk about today, I believe, is a really interesting presentation, a really interesting vision, and a really interesting concept for how we can take what would seem at first something very basic of a warrior class and do it in a very different way. And most importantly, in what I believe will be a very fun way for you, our backers, and eventually our players to enjoy playing a warrior. When I began concepting the Viking warrior, I knew that you, our backers, and frankly, myself as well, wanted to see some things that were really, almost stereotypically Viking. So, axes and shields and, ferocious combat. Now, with that foundation in mind, I also had to consider what we could do in terms of making the Viking warriors fit in with an MMORPG, and of course an RVR-centric MMORPG. So after kicking some things around for a little while, I decided to look at using one of the strongest aspects of Viking lore, their mythology, as the basis for the warrior class. And so I looked to the gods and goddesses of Viking mythology to form the basis of what would become this warrior class for the Vikings. So we started with Thor. Then I looked at Odin. I looked at Freyr. I looked at other gods and goddesses, and I thought that not only these guys and gals would be really cool, but what else could we possibly do with it? How could we use this lore, this very strong lore that also involves magical weapons, and build this class around it? And that is the precursor to what I'm going to talk about next, the path system. So what is the path system? And how does it fit into this Viking warrior class? Well, look, almost all of us are probably familiar with the ways that classes can be specced out in various MMORPGs. So you have talent trees, you have a variety of other methods that we could have chosen to use in order to give you guys and gals a really interesting Viking class. And the more I thought about it, and the more I looked at, again, talent trees and other methods, I kept coming back to the same problem, is that either the system was going to end up being very restrictive, which is something I think almost all of our backers have agreed they don't want, or it was going to be just so free form that it was going to be very difficult for players to identify themselves to other players during gameplay. I mean, after all, if you're looking to put a group together, you really don't want to spend a lot of time listing all of your stats, all of your abilities, all of the runes or components that you have for your class. And so that's where the path system was born. So what is the path system at its core? The path system is an organizational tool. It's a way that you, the players, as you go through and play the game, can see how you stack up against these various paths. And the paths draw on that Viking lore that I mentioned in the first part of this discussion. They draw on Thor, they draw on Odin, they draw on the magical weapons of these gods and goddesses. So Mjolnir is in there. All the things that have been associated with Viking mythology. Again, magical weapons, gods and goddesses, heroic deeds. All that is part of the path system. So let's say that you want to play a Viking warrior. Great. The next step for you is simply deciding if you want to specialize in anything right from the beginning, or frankly, you don't have to specialize. If you like the idea of playing a hammer-wielding Viking warrior who wears heavier armor and is in the middle of battle, swinging that hammer, you can do that. And you can do that right from the beginning. Or you can decide not to follow that path. And that's what makes the path system so interesting. It really is totally up to you what you do with it. Now, how can this work? It's actually kind of simple. It sounds complicated, but it really isn't. And for those of you who followed us during our BSC days, you know that we have a very unique ability crafting system where you, our players, are going to be given runes, you're going to be given other things that we'll just call components that you then use to make up your own abilities. In the simplest case, and then a very tropish case, you can think about how you do this with magic. If you're given the rune for fire, and you're given the rune for ball, you then can create an ability called Fireball. And that same system is going to apply to our combat classes. Or I should say our melee classes. So if you want to be that hammer-wielding guy, you'll start with some components that will allow you to build attacks using a hammer. Now, do you have to do this? Of course not. You can go to any of the other paths. Or, and this is where it gets fun, you don't have to do that at all. Think of the paths as a pool. And within the pool are the different components that are associated with that path. So in the case of the path of Thor, you would have the components that are associated with a hammer. If you go the path of Odin, you would also now have these components that are associated with the use of a spear. If you choose the path of Freyr, you will then have components that are associated with a sword. And you can choose any one of those right from the beginning, or again, you don't even have to. You can start with these same components, but not associate yourself with any of the paths. And that's where it gets even more interesting, because then you can also combine paths. Now, how does this all work? You start the game, you go through our rather elaborate character creation process, choose the path of a warrior. You will then be given the components that you need to work your way through the different warrior paths. Now, are you going to get all of them? Of course not. You'll get enough though to start. And then at any point, if you want to dedicate yourself to a path, all you have to do is visit a pathmaster. And once you do that, you may be given other components because you may already have them. Don't forget, because you can do this at any point in time during the game. And you will then see how you are doing in terms of working your way through the path system. So, you could start with Odin. You like the idea of the spear. Halfway through your first week, or month, or even 6 months, you decide now you want to do a little bit more hammer work. Well, all you have to do is go to the Pathmaster, or get the runes and other methods, and I should say runes, components, and you can work your way down the path of Thor, or again, any of the other paths. And that's the other thing to keep in mind. Not only are these voluntary, but they are not exclusive. So if you decide you want to specialize, in being a follower of Thor, and you want to be really good with that hammer, but every so often you really want to play around with the shield, you can do that as well. The only limitation right now on the path system is that we have said right from the beginning that choices matter in this game. So you will not be able to master all the different paths and all the abilities in the path, because that wouldn't be fair, and that also wouldn't be keeping with both our concept of a horizontal progression system, but also, and maybe even more importantly, again, the concept that choices matter. And it's really important to remember that each of these pools for a path are a separate entity, okay? Your pool, if you decide to go down a path, or the bigger class pool, they're only for your class or only for your path. If you want to learn things outside your class, you will not be able to. So for those of you who are worrying about, oh wow, does this mean healers can heal but so can fighters because they can learn from different pools? No, no, no. You can learn any ability, any rune, any component within your class. That's always there. Within your path, obviously, that's focused on your path, because this way it allows you to see progression. But if you want to learn things outside your path, that's easy. If you want to learn things outside your class, that's not going to happen. There is no way to do that unless we say that it's okay to do that, and we're not doing that. We've said right from the beginning, healers heal, fighters fight, and that's pretty much the way it's going to work. We know that our healers want to be strong healers. We know our warriors want to be strong warriors. And that's how it's going to work, even with a very open-ended system like this. Again, because your pool